Ooh,
I know. I feel it too.
my,
I had leg press this morning too.
my legs are saying, why in the hell did you do this to me?
I had leg press and I had split lunges and I had I forgot what they call those damn things. Anyway, my legs that feel you too.
And then I had to do the leg curls with the hamstrings, and I'm just like, I ain't got enough ham for these strings. It ain't make no damn sense. Now I want to cry.
Oh, JB.
I don't really want to cry no more.
Damn.
Right. It ain't right. But welcome to the Revolutionary Blackout Network. I am your host, James Fowler. It's so good to see y'all. Y'all got to hear that entire conversation because I wanted some pity. But just to let you guys know, the Sabby and Jaybe show is every single Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sabs, my homie, my sister from another mister. Good to see you.
What's going on, JB? We're both talking about our workout routine earlier, so I'm in pain too.
All this for just trying to be healthy. I'm just like, damn it. Why couldn't I have been an athletic child? Instead, I had to sit in front of the TV with Cinnamon Toast Crunch watching Power Rangers instead of playing outside on my bike. Damn you, Jaybe. Damn you. Anyway, so just to let you guys know, if you guys have not already, go ahead and give a like. This helps us out very much. Thank you so very much for that. If you guys have not, you guys can also subscribe to our Substack at revolutionaryblackout.substack.com so that you can get those email notifications whenever we go live or upload any clips. And if you guys have any inquiries or you like to submit stories or just give us some words of encouragement, you guys can also go to revolutionaryblackout@outlook.com. We deeply appreciate it very much. Thank you very much for that. Now, just as an aside, I want to say hello to everybody that's in the audience. Love you. Good to have you here. As we have a guest, we want to be respectful of their time. So, what are we going to be talking about today? We're going to be talking about power players. Now, why is there Barack Obama and Kamala Harris there? Well, we're going to get into it because the main person we're talking about is Barack Obama and allegedly ties to the CIA, family ties to the CIA. This is an article that I said was like, Sabs, take a look at this. And in her words, she said, oh, shit. So we're going to get into this because this story was crazy. But we also have a guest to join us with this story to talk about it as well. We have Kai joining us. Good to see you, Kai.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you so very much for joining. And then we can get into some of the stuff that you're into close towards the end of the segment as well. So thank you very much for joining us. One of the first things that I wanted to go into before we get into this, I want to share just the first about 25 seconds of this video. And then after we finish this 25 seconds, then we'll get into the article and then we'll finish the rest of the conversation. So one of the things I wanted to do was we'll get into this.
Even before I came into office, I was very clear that in the immediate aftermath of 9/11, we did some things that were wrong. We did a whole lot of things that were right, but we tortured some folks. We did some things that were contrary to our values.
Were you surprised to hear the...
Now, let me ask you something. Contrary to their values. Now, because you're a guest, Kai, I would like to start off with you. The enhanced interrogation, because I want to be careful how many times I use the T word. The enhanced interrogation that was used, is that contrary to American values? Or is that just the same old that we have seen throughout history? What is your thoughts?
Well, as far as I know, it's very consistent with American values. I mean, the U.S. has assassinated, has funded terror squads, death squads, funded dictators who disappeared thousands of people. This is just par for the course. I mean, there's
Mhm.
nothing new or unusual about enhanced interrogation, except that it was being done directly by U.S. agencies and not through third parties. Because historically, I would say the U.S. prefers to use a third party to do their dirtiest deeds.
Mhm. Sab, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's just I mean, I know we're gonna get into it, but I had heard some things about like Obama's connection like to the CIA on his mother's side, like with his mother, but yeah. That video clip just took me back because I forgot about that for quite some time. But now it's just like to get up there publicly and say, yeah, we tortured some folks. You know,
Ooh.
and people just go along with it, like, yeah, okay.
He's like, my bad, my bad.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. All right, so let's get into this article. So the reason why I said allegedly is because, well, allegedly. So this says a company of family, the untold history of Obama and the CIA. This is from Jerry Kuzmarov. This actually came out 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago. So this actually says, this essay is another in-cam series on the history of the CIA. So it says this center has sparked controversy because it will not house any actual documents being built on supposedly protected Jackson Park in Chicago's southern lakefront. So let's get into this. It says, in the summer of 2012, Barack Obama signed a secret order authorizing the CIA and U.S. agencies to support rebels in Syria, seeking to oust Syrian leader Bashar al-Assad, a nationalist who is allied with Iran and stood up to U.S. proxy Israel. Costing more than $1 billion, Operation Timber Sycamore evolved into the largest covert operation since arming the Mujahideen fighters in Afghanistan in the 1980s. U.S. Special Forces under Timber Sycamore again trained Islamic fundamentalists, this time in Jordan, who again carried out a reign of terror. First of all, here you go. It says U.S. Special Forces under Timber Sycamore trained Islamic fundamentalists, this time in Jordan, who again carried out a reign of terror. For either one of you, what is the similarity here? Is there any similarities here to other groups that you have noticed in, I'd say, the last 40, 50 years?
I can take that. I mean, we can go. This is just purely off the top of my head. We can say the Mujahideen in Afghanistan was a group that was trained and armed and funded by the U.S. The Contras in Nicaragua were trained and armed and funded by the U.S. And if I sit and think a little bit, I mean, if we could put up a global map, you could just point at places on the map where the U.S. has funded and armed and trained,
Mm-hmm.
Terrorists.
Yeah. Sabs, do you want to take a shot at it? Because I have a thought in my head, but I wanted to make sure you get your thoughts out first.
I think like Kai had the examples that I was thinking of, but yeah, well, actually, there was one I felt like we were talking about not too long ago. ISIS.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the U.S., that was another thing about ISIS. Remember that when the U.S., when they took out Saddam Hussein, That basically paved the way for ISIS to come into power, because Saddam Hussein, you can have your criticism of Saddam Hussein, but the reality is when he was still in power, he was able to keep like those types of groups in check and prevent them from, rising to some sort of power. But once they captured Saddam Hussein, that is what gave way to ISIS.
Yeah. So you also have what happened with the training of Osama bin Laden. And then because of how they were treating Arab countries, particularly Palestine, because the letter from Osama bin Laden actually was essentially re-released, and a lot of people were gaining ground and talking about that, especially on TikTok. This is why they had to take away that letter, because now a lot of people were saying we don't understand, but we don't agree with what he did, but we understand why. And so now this goes into play in Palestine. When I read this sentence, in my head, I changed the words. I said, U.S. Special Forces under Operation whatever it is, again trained Islamic Zionists, this time in Israel, who again carried out a reign of terror. So there's always this religious fundamentalism that is a perversion of the actual religion that they will use in order to maintain control of a region. Okay, you maybe have this perverted version of Islam that you'll have some people that they'll use, some people to push. You'll have right-wing Christian extremists here in the United States. Then you also have right-wing Zionist extremists that are being used to carry out the interests of the United States in places like Gaza and now in the West Bank. So this goes in line with every single point. Any religious group that has a deeply fundamentalist, very ultra right-wing sector, the United States is going to utilize them in order to carry out what they need in order to say, oh, well, we just got to fight terrorism. Because if it's not going to be people who have a perverted, view of Islam, it's going to have people who have a perverted view of Hinduism. It's going to be somebody who's going to be kind of like Modi. You know what I'm saying? And that's the thing. They use the people who have this religious extremist view, and they use it in order to push imperialism and war.
And it seems to be like the pro, or however you want to refer to it. But it seems like the religions that the U.S. government will never say is the enemy are those Abraham religions.
Yeah.
And that's what it seems like. But every other religion they'll say is you know what I mean? They'll say that Islam is the religion of Islam. Tulsi Gabbard does this a lot, actually. Tulsi Gabbard is notorious for saying, I've been trying to warn people about radical Islam and da-da-da. She's always been, for a long time, she said Islamophobic things, right? So she does that a lot. But they tend to basically make it seem like any other religion that is not a part of the Abraham religions, they make it seem like those religions are a problem.
Well, just to push back a little bit, Islam is an Abrahamic religion. And the thing is that that's the only Abrahamic religion that actually gets labeled as terroristic. But rest assured, they're going to try to do the same thing to any other group that they can. Because ultimately, Muslims also believe in Abraham. They also believe that Jesus was a prophet that was sent by God. And so they believe he's a prophet on the same level as Muhammad. So the thing is, so ultimately, when people say the Abrahamic religions, they're talking about Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. But even still, it's Islam today, but it'll be Christianity tomorrow. Maybe some Christians that are fundamentalist in their views are going to be used even more. It could be used here in the United States, as far as fascism goes. But
I don't really see them come. I don't really see the U.S. government attack Christian groups, though.
No, using Christian groups. That's what I meant. Sorry. Yeah, I apologize. So let's continue in this article. This article is juicy. Let's get into it. So it says, a voracious consumer of intelligence, Obama trademark throughout his presidency, was to move war into the shadows, a light footprint approach designed to expand U.S. power covertly. General Joseph Votel, head of the Special Operations Command, SOCOM, characterized Obama era as a golden age for special operations. Green Berets deployed to 133 countries, 70% of the world in 2014 alone. In a meeting about Afghanistan, Obama told CIA Director Leon Panetta that the CIA would get everything it wanted. So, I mean, Obama was really a deep state president. I mean, all of them are, but Obama was especially a deep state president. Says the New York Times reported that in 67 years since the CIA was founded, few presidents have had as close bond with their intelligence chiefs as Mr. Obama forged with Mr. John Brennan, an architect of the CIA's extraordinary rendition program and former CIA station chief in Saudi Arabia. John Brennan was actually replaced, the replacement for General David Petraeus after David Petraeus actually had a scandal when he cheated on his wife, basically. So they had to kick him out and place in John Brennan. So that was a whole thing. Says Obama's worldview meshed so closely with his unsentimental intel warrior and terrorist hunter that Obama found himself finishing Brennan's sentences. An anonymous cabinet member explained that the presidents tend to be smitten with the instruments of the intelligence community, but Obama was more smitten than most. Then this has been an intelligence presidency in a way we haven't seen maybe since Eisenhower. So, my goodness. It says the consequences could have been seen in Obama's boosting funding for National Endowment for Democracy, which promotes regime changes in countries defined in New World Order, and its drastic expansion of the use of drones for both surveillance and targeted killings. Obama administration further backed coups in Ukraine and Honduras. Now we're talking about Ukraine right now. The coup in Ukraine happened in 2014. And the coup was spearheaded by people like Victoria Nuland. And of course, if you remember, I think John McCain was actually one of the people who actually went to Ukraine as well to help with this. So the late John McCain. So the Obama administration really was actually behind what's really going on in Ukraine right now. So we're still feeling the effects of Obama to this day. B, pivoted the U.S. military to Asia, ramped up arms sales to Saudi Arabia, and expanded military bases in Africa. C, helped suppress evidence about CIA torture. D, refused to pursue a criminal case against CIA's money laundering bank, HSBC. E, eavesdropped on U.S. allies and U.S. Congressman Dennis Kucinich, who opposed his administration's illegal invasion of Libya that devastated the country. F, stepped up surveillance and efforts to destroy WikiLeaks and its founder, Julian Assange. And G, presided over the prosecution of a record number of whistleblowers under the Espionage Act of 1917. Okay, so does this surprise any of you that when you think about it, all this happened under Obama?
I mean,
It doesn't surprise me. The Dennis Kucinich part too. That's another. We should try to see if we can get him on here. Jaybe, I interviewed him once. We have to remember like what happened to him. Like the Democratic Party, they redrew his district so that he no longer had a district, so that he couldn't run for re-election. Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to read this last paragraph because this one also has some facts in it that I want to get into as well. And then we'll get into the family connection. It says, additionally, the Obama administration, A, protected longtime CIA assets from prosecution, like Rwandan mass murderer Paul Kagame. B, waged war by proxy in Yemen through the United Arab Emirates, to which it sold nearly $27 billion worth of arms. C, provided weapons to drug cartels in Mexico under the Operation Fast and Furious while ramping up the war on drugs through the Plan Merida and D, oversaw establishment of clandestine arms pipeline from Libya to Syria by Ambassador Chris Evans as part of the Operation Timber Sycamore. The part that I wanted to focus on is provided weapons to drug cartels in Mexico under Operation Fast and Furious.
Mhm.
My thing is like, so the whole war on drugs has been a stain, not a stain. It has been devastating, especially to the Black community, because where are we getting these weapons? Where are we getting these drugs? Because they don't come up in our neighborhoods, but yet they're being sold in our neighborhoods. The crack epidemic was actually done through the CIA. And when they were selling things in our neighborhoods, and they were using the sale from the crack cocaine and from our neighborhoods to help fund the wars. And so when we say Obama really tore up the Black community, he really tore us up.
Yeah, it's true.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's go into the family CIA connection. It says Obama's record as president should have not been surprising given his family background. So his mother, Ann Dunham, worked for U.S. government agencies and allied NGOs, the Ford Foundation, Asia Foundation, the Development Alternatives, Inc., and the United States Agency for International Development, or USAID, in Indonesia in the 1960s and 70s, as well as Ghana, Nepal, Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, and Thailand. Anne had training in Russian language, which, with everything combined, made her a CIA recruiter's wet dream. Hang on, wait 1 second. Hold the phone. Now, you have people like Chairman O'Malley Ishatella, Penny Hess, and Jesse Neville that are in federal court right now in Tampa. I was there on Tuesday. Who are being indicted for Russian conspiring with Russians when they were just doing mutual aid work. And yet you have Obama, who his mother has Russian ties, and nobody says a word.
Well, you know what? One of the things that stands out to me is her involvement with these agencies, and a lot of people don't realize, like groups like the National Endowment for Democracy and USAID. These are soft power agencies which exist really to be able to project U.S. influence in these countries outside of like the military, just to be able to train up the next level of managers, the next level of elected officials, folks who are going to be working in various agencies. And so her involvement in that kind of sets the state, makes the claims of her as a potential CIA agent extremely plausible, because this is generally how this thing works. This is what these agencies exist to do.
Mm-hmm. So did you want to say something, Sabs?
No, I was just going to say, I think these are the kind of things that people just maybe did not know when Obama ran in 2008. I mean, I didn't know this. And so I'm just thinking about how things would have been different if people did know where Obama really came from, right? And how come we never hear from his brothers on Twitter? You know this, right? His brothers on Twitter. Obama's brother, what's his name? Malik Obama in Kenya, Jaybe.
I think that's his half brother.
Half brother? Yeah. He posts pictures of like him and Obama from like back in the day, like often. I really do think his Twitter account exists solely just to be like Obama's lying and he's a fraud, because he calls out Obama all the time. But it's one of those things. It's like, you notice you never hear from that side of the family. You never hear from the half brother, like at least not with Obama, from Obama. You never hear from that side of the family. Yep. It's just interesting.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that. So it says the microfinancing projects that she worked on to help turn traditional craft industries into sustainable businesses were designed to tether third world masses to the mentality of finance capitalism. So that's Obama's unauthorized biographer put it. Dunham's boss said USAID in Indonesia, Dr. Donald Gordon Jr., author of Credit for Small Farmers in Developing Countries for USAID, was identified in Julius Mader's 1968 book, Who's in the CIA as a CIA agent. Another boss, Peter Geithner, was future Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner's father. Oh boy. Oh, it's all coming together, baby. It says Anne obtained her bachelor's and master's degree in anthropology at the University of Hawaii, writing a thesis on which argued that Indonesian villagers were dynamic and could produce greater wealth and had access to market incentives and capital. Anne went to Indonesia in the mid-1960s. At that time, the CIA supported a military coup led by General Suharto against the left-wing regime of Sukarno. Over 2 million suspected members of the Indonesian Communist Party, PKI, were rounded up and massacred in its aftermath and thousands were imprisoned for many decades. Why aren't we talking about this more? About this Holocaust?
Well, you know what? There are so many to discuss. This Indonesian massacre is just like one in a long list of similar massacres all over the world. And one of the things I was going to raise when we talked about the funding of Islamic extremists and arming them and making them a military threat against governments. The United States has been doing that for about 70 years. And it started really at the end of World War II, where the U.S. was engaged in this Cold War, really a Cold War that they started. It was not like the Soviet Union wanted to be in a Cold War with them. And the U.S. had made up its mind that they were going to fund and arm the most rabid right-wing forces available. So it started with former Nazis, fresh out of Germany, and then it migrated to these, as they wanted to focus on the oil-producing regions, they began to fund these right-wing extremists and against some progressive Middle Eastern governments. I think a lot of people aren't aware of some of the progressive nationalist governments that were emerging in the 50s and 60s in the Middle East because they never got to really. What'd you say?
Like Iran. Iran was progressive.
Yeah. Iran, Yemen. There's a bunch of them.
Yeah, they're not. They're not as. They weren't as deeply religious in their governments in the past. All that happened because of U.S. interference. Remember, Mohammad Mossadegh was a left-wing president of Iran, and actually wanted to nationalize the oil. And the United States, together with Britain, did not want that nationalization. This is why you have BP now that is dominating within places like Iran, because, of course, they did not want that nationalization to happen, because then that means that the oligarchs wouldn't have their grubby little hands on Iran's oil. So ultimately, it all goes back to the money. You got to follow the Sabs. Y'all need to start listening to Sabs more.
Follow the money. It's true. I mean, even when we look at Afghanistan, there's a picture. It's still somewhere online. I showed it before, I think like a year or so ago. But there's a picture that shows what women looked like in Afghanistan in the 70s, like right before the U.S. intervention. And they were dressed just like us. Like they had on like skirts and like just typical 70s wear, bell bottoms, things like that. But then after the U.S. intervention, that was when the dress code changed. So were the women in Afghanistan more free before U.S. intervention or after U.S.? So you see what I mean? So when people say we have to help the women and the children in Afghanistan, it's like the women and the children were doing fine in Afghanistan until the U.S. intervened.
When folks make that argument that, we have to help, meaning the U.S. has to go somewhere and help, you can just ask them, tell me one place where the U.S. has intervened where the folks are better off as a result. It's that track record is shockingly bad. Well, not shocking to us, but Shocking, nonetheless.
Mm-hmm. I can't find the lie, brother. I can't find the lie.
I want to add one. I want to add one other point,
Sure.
especially as it relates to the Indonesia piece, where they said
Yeah.
2 million suspected communists. There weren't 2 million communists. They just were killing anyone who was progressive, who was speaking out, who was trying to do. They just were killing people really indiscriminately. There's one thing that Indonesian piece reminds me of is that anti-communist fervor has tremendously shaped the world that we live in today, because the US put money and guns behind every anti-communist on the planet while the Soviet Union was around rather. So it's just something for folks to keep in mind, that anti-communism is why the world isn't a better place. The US has spread fascism all over the world, quite intentionally.
Yeah, it was good that we brought you on here. Thank you very much for that. All right, so let's continue. It says let's see. So much of Ann's anthropological work and consulting work was carried out in East and Central Java, which provided a hotbed for support for the PKI, including among members for the Javanese Women's Association and Labor Federation. The CIA at this time employed anthropologists and development workers as undercover agents to gather information on villagers' political affiliations, in which Anne, according to the thesis advisor Alice Dewey, had taken an interest. After her arrival in Indonesia, Dunham taught English at the American Embassy in Jakarta, which also housed one of the largest CIA stations in Asia and had significant satellite stations in Surabaya in Eastern Java and Medan on Sumatra. Durham also worked for the Indonesian American Friendship Institute in Jakarta, a suspected CIA front. One of her closest colleagues, Adi Sansano, had been the leader of the Muslim students during the overthrow of Sukarno. While Anne's recruitments as CIA agent had never been openly acknowledged, she was among the few U.S. government employees with language skills and access to fulfill this role effectively. Development projects in the region were explicitly designed to pry villagers away from the PKI orbit, and Anne's work would have contributed to this. In March 1965, Anne married an Indonesian Lieutenant Colonel, Lolo Sotero, whom she met at University of Hawaii's East-West Center, a kinder, gentler version of the School of the Americas, according to one writer, and cover for a training program in which Southeast Asians were brought to Hawaii and were trained to go back to create agent nets. A U.S. Information Service Director Frank Scotton described it. The head of the East-West Center in 1965 was Howard P. Jones, U.S. Ambassador to Indonesia from 1958 to 1965. Jones was president of Jakarta as Suharto and his CIA-backed military officers planned the 1965 overthrow of Sukarno, who was seen along with the PKI as an ally of China. Jones later defended the coup in the Washington Post, saying that Suharto was merely responding to a communist coup against Sukarno led by Colonel Untong, which was actually set up by the CIA. A friend of Anne's told her biographer that the marriage to Lolo was arranged, suggesting that Anne may have acted as a female honeypot for the CIA, whose job was to recruit assets to help them attain U.S. citizenship. Okay, so it's hailing from an aristocratic family which lost out in Sukarno's land reform. Suharto was recalled to active duty in July 1965 before General Suharto's right-wing coup, and worked as an army geographer in Java and Papua New Guinea, where the Indonesian army brutally suppressed popular revolts. Suharto went on to become an executive at Mobil Oil and its liaison to Suharto, whose economic policies Dunham praised. So
there's a lot there. There's a lot there. I want to go back to where Anne met Sotero at the University of Hawaii's East-West Center, a kinder, gentler version of the School of the Americas. Because I don't know, listeners may not be familiar with the School of Americas. The School of Americas, because it doesn't exist under that name any longer. But what the school, folks on the left used to refer to the School of the Americas as the School of the Assassins, because the U.S. would use the School of the Americas to train militaries of right-wing regimes, that were client regimes of the U.S. And so they would send generals, they would send soldiers to the School of the Americas, where they would learn how to do, let's call it, enhanced interrogation and assassination and so on and so forth. The reason the School of Americas doesn't exist in the same way that it once did is because during the 70s and the 80s, as the U.S. was funding all of these Contras and these rebel groups and these anti-communist fascists, the atrocities were piling up and the stories were coming out. And over time, as investigations were done, when they would find the soldiers who were responsible for atrocities, invariably, most of them would be graduates of the School of the Americas. And so him referring to this as a kinder, gentler School of the Americas, I don't know what that means. Are they like killing less people? Are there enhanced interrogations slightly less enhanced? I don't know what that means, but we do know the pattern. And
but so did people apply to go to the School of Americas?
Well, I'll just give you an example. Let's say who's a country that, well, we can't really use Israel, but countries that were under U.S. influence, the U.S. would have their leadership send their military folks there to be trained. Under the guise of, sometimes it was under the guise of the war on drugs, but mainly what it really was anti-communism. We have to stop progressive movements from,
So it could be like countries like Colombia, especially before.
Back in the day, yes, for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Big Colombia got millions and millions of dollars to their military under the guise of fighting the war on drugs, which is laughable because if you were alive during the 80s, all of that cocaine was coming out of Colombia. So, but under the guise of the war on drugs, they were getting money, training, military equipment, weapons, but it really was to fight. Remember, they had in Colombia the FARC rebels, which was a communist guerrilla group, and that's really what it was. So there's always some subtext, there's always some pretext for which the U.S. uses to give a company money or training or weapons, but it's always to stop progressive movements.
Yeah. In my religious evangelical days, I actually met someone who actually flew planes for the drug cartels in Colombia, and he would fly under the radar, literally low altitude, in order to transport cocaine into the United States.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and you'd be surprised some of these people are, because you'll run into them and you'll see them and you wouldn't even think that type of person. But yeah. Of course, he devoted his life to God now, so he's not in that.
Go for him that he got away from it and survived. He's not in jail. He's not dead.
Yep. All right, let's continue. So now we're going to go into. So we were talking about Obama's mom. Now we're going to go into his grandfather, CIA family connection, Stanley Armour Dunham. Obama's grandfather, Stanley Armour Dunham, who helped raise him, served with the 9th Air Force Division in World War II. He was pictured in military uniform with no insignia, which suggests an intelligence unit. Another photo featured his daughter Anne with the insignia of an elite school in Lebanon on her shirt in the 1950s, where Stanley may have worked with the CIA or other U.S. government agency. In the early 1960s, Stanley Dunham was part of a group photo taken with Barack Obama Sr. on his departure from the University of Hawaii. Obama Sr. had been part of the State Department CIA exchange finance, in part by Joseph P. Kennedy Foundation, that brought future African leaders to the U.S. who were being groomed to serve U.S. interests in the Cold War. Joseph P. Kennedy. Who is that? Joseph P. Kennedy. Wait, hold on. Because now I'm curious, because I'm like, who is Joseph P. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.? Is that an uncle?
Yeah. It's a great question.
Joseph P. Which one? There's Joseph P. Kennedy Sr., second, third, and June. Joseph P. Kennedy Sr. was the U.S. ambassador to the United Kingdom. Which one are we talking about?
That's actually a really good question, because I didn't know there was that many Joseph Kennedy.
Okay, Joseph P. Kennedy Sr. died in 1969.
Okay. So that might have been this one, because Obama Sr. is funded by Joseph P. Kennedy Sr. Foundation. So if he was a philanthropist,
it has to be the senior. I'm looking now, because the junior died in 1944. So
okay, you said senior?
Actually outlived him. Yeah, so it has to be the senior. So it is.
Okay, Joseph P. Kennedy Sr. I'm sorry, so many of them with the same name. Joseph P. Kennedy Sr. was an American businessman, investor, philanthropist, and politician. He is known for his own political prominence as well as that of his children. And he was the patriarch of the Kennedy family, which included President JFK and Senator RFK and longtime Senator Ted Kennedy. So the dad.
So it sounds like it's RFK Jr.'s grandfather.
Well, no, it says his children.
Yeah.
So he's Senator RFK's dad.
Yeah. So RFK Jr.'s grandfather.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting when you start to think about it, all the connections. And then RFK Jr.'s daughter is linked to what?
Not daughter, daughter-in-law.
Daughter-in-law?
Yeah, but I see where you're going.
Oh my goodness. It's a small world after all.
Mm-hmm. And you know what, this and all of this, these connections, the connection here with Kennedy, and the connections earlier with Geithner and Geithner's dad and Obama's dad. It reminds me of, there's a book written by a sociologist named C. Wright Mills called The Power Elite, where he lays out the connections that what we would call the ruling class, how they all live in certain neighborhoods and their kids go to certain schools, and there's the connections are just very, very incestuous. And so this is why, as we're going through this, and we can find a name and connect it to this one and that one, and this one's a president and this one's a senator, and that's how this goes.
It's American royalty.
Yeah. We don't have a formal monarchy, but we have an informal, a looser monarchy.
Yep, absolutely. It says the photo would suggest that Dunham was one of the coordinators of the exchange, indicating that work for the State Department or CIA. According to his official biography, Dunham worked as a furniture salesman for the Standard Grumbaum Furniture Company, which led to his frequent travel and family moves. We ain't stupid. Independent researchers believe, however, that this job was a cover for work as of his intelligence agent who surveilled radical groups or military or Air Force production facilities, which is what brought him to Hawaii. Dunham's favorite bar in Honolulu, to which he brought young Barry, perhaps not coincidentally, was owned by William J. Lederer, a known CIA agent who wrote the Cold War classic, The Ugly American. It's all coming together. Now, Daddy Obama, Barack Obama Sr. Obama purported Kenyan-born father Barack Obama Sr. had met his mother in 1960 when he was 23 and she 18 in a Russian language class at the University of Hawaii. The leader of the opposition Kenyan African Democratic Union condemned the exchange Obama was part of for favoring certain tribes, the majority Kikuyu and minority Luo, over the other tribes supporting the Kenyan African National Union. The latter's leader, Tom Mboya, was a favor of the CIA and opposed the Pan-Africanist currents in the continent. He was one selected Obama Sr. for the scholarship. Obama Sr. returned the favor by going back to Kenya to work for the Kenyan Finance and Transport Ministries, an oil firm in Kenya, before dying in a car crash in 1982. And Mboya himself was assassinated in 1969. So this, as far-fetched as it sounds, Obama Sr. may have not been Obama's real father. Obama Sr. Sorry, go ahead.
Say, people have been saying that for quite some time.
Yeah.
About Obama Sr. that may not have been his real dad, and I don't know.
Yeah. So that part is, you guys can read a little bit more about that.
I hadn't heard that before reading this.
Yeah. Yeah.
You never heard that, Kai? Like people saying that he may not be his dad? I've heard that before.
I never heard it.
Yeah. They're saying that his real father was a guy named Frank Marshall Davis, an African-American journalist, sexually libertine prolet, political radical, and alleged target of Grandpa Dunham's surveillance. I don't know. So unless we actually get like a DNA test on Barack Obama, I don't know.
Yeah.
But let's go to Madeline Dunham. One other connection between Obama and the U.S. national security state lies with his grandmother, Madeline, who Obama called Toot. Though lacking a college degree, Madeline rose to the rank of vice president of the Bank of Hawaii, which suggests she had high-level personal connections.
You think? Like, how do you become the vice president of a bank and you don't have a college degree? I mean, even just to get a low entry-level job at a bank, you still didn't have a degree.
That's like me, going into work as a teller at Chase Bank, and then in a couple of years, I end up being the vice president of Chase Bank. Like, what?
Yeah, somebody to get that job. Somebody powerful, no question about it.
Yeah,
she knows somebody that stole from somebody. In that job, Madeline handled escrow accounts used to pay American Cold War clients in Indonesia, Taiwan, the Philippines, South Korea, and elsewhere, including through CIA proprietaries. Oh my goodness. Says the Bank of Hawaii further had dealings with Nugan Hand Bank of Australia, through which the CIA funded the constitutional coup d'etat against Australian Labor Prime Minister Gough Whitlam in 1975. Yeah. Oh my goodness. So this is, oh my goodness. It's funny because regarding his own story, Obama had promoted falsehoods at every step. In A Promised Land, he neglected to mention that after graduating Columbia University in 1983, he worked for about a year for Business International Corporations, a Manhattan-based consulting house to multinational corporations, where his job was to edit newsletters on business conditions in countries around the world. Headed by a close friend and former Vice President Hubert Humphrey, Orville Freeman Jr., the former governor of Minnesota, who was involved with Humphrey in a purge of suspected communists, and the Farmer Labor Party, BIC, had functioned as a CIA front. Its subspecialty was recruiting left-wing organizers to use as assets and in infiltrating foreign labor unions with the goal of promoting disruptions in targeted economies.
You know what this reminds me of? I don't know if you guys saw, if you know a lot about Oppenheimer, But Oppenheimer was also a part of communist organizations in the United States. And of course, this was during the time they were like, the US government was trying to like smear people and say, oh, you're a communist and you got to go and all that kind of stuff. Right.
Mhm.
But there was infiltration then too. So it just goes to show you, like, again, some of the people that were supposedly a part of this communist organization in the United States during that time turned out to be just like CIA plants or infiltrators and stuff like that. And so you always have to be wary, that presence is still around and not everybody is acting in good faith. And that just goes to show you, even there with Obama. If you could put it back up real quick, Jaybe, because I saw the Columbia University part with Obama. Again, like these leftist organizations, it goes on to say, it was saying in one of the paragraphs here that one of these was like a CIA front. So you have to be like cautious of, and Nick has explained this on the show multiple times before about the CIA tactics. And one of the big ones that I think a lot of people is a red flag, which oftentimes happened back then too, is that every time you try to move the needle forward, there's always opposition within the group to keep you exactly where you are so that you don't actually progress. That's a big red flag. And, obviously that's happened here. That happened back during Oppenheimer as well. So I think that I just think of so many different things. Like I think of different like left organizations that never really got anywhere. You know what I mean? Didn't really progress.
The U.S. put so much money into this, and at the time, this is the point that you're raising is so important because at the time, folks who were really honest and genuine in their struggle to create a better world, they didn't know about COINTELPRO. They didn't know about all of this opposition that was secretly being funded. But we live in a time where we have this long, detailed historical record, right? And it's like, it seems like a lot of people are determined to not learn from the past. That, we, like, to your point, we have to be aware of that.
And they'll pick the people that you would never like suspect, right? Like we found out, Jaybe and I talked about this, we found out not too long ago that Plies from the Fugees admitted that he was an informant.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that? Like Plies?
Yes.
Like who would think the Fugees, right? Like,
Praz.
Yeah.
Praz.
Who would think? Praz. Sorry, I said Plies.
Yeah, because it's a different rapper. Yeah.
Yeah.
We can't. Plies got his own issues, but we don't want to slander that man with that.
But yeah, like Praz, and then of course we found out about Al Sharpton. Like all these different people that like they usually try to pick someone who's deep enough in or close enough to the people that they're trying to get to. Also, we saw, this happened with Fred Hampton. They infiltrated like the Black Panthers and stuff like that. But who would have thought Praz?
Yeah.
Like from the
Yeah. And I mean, when it comes to Al Sharpton, we found out who was actually paying for that perm. Good Lord. Them perms are expensive now.
Yeah, no, that perm budget, he might bankrupt the CIA with that perm budget.
He better stay away from fire. His pants are on fire whenever he speaks. You better stay away from fire with all that product in his head.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord Jesus. All right, let's continue. So I wanted to move down to this, and then we'll get into the DNC connection that I wanted to touch on. But it says, Obama's ties to the Crowns and Pritzkers. Now, I want you guys to pay attention to this, too. It says, one other thing omitted by Obama is his close connections to the Crown and Pritzker families. The Crown family, whose net worth stands to over $10 billion, has long owned a significant stake in General Dynamics, manufacturer of Trident missiles, Stryker troop carriers, bunker buster bombs, LAV-25 amphibious armored vehicles, Abrams tanks, sniper rifles, and nuclear-powered submarines and naval destroyers. During Obama's presidency, General Dynamics brought out 11 firms specializing in satellites, geospatial intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, and amassed contracts from 16 intelligence agencies after investing $10 million in annual lobbying or bribery, in my my language. The company further embraced every intelligence-driven style of warfare, developing small targeted identification systems and equipment that could intercept insurgents' cell phones, and laptop computers, and computer software used for cyber and psychological warfare. Were we listening to Edward Snowden? Says the Crown family gave at least $86,636 to Obama campaigns between 1990 and 2012 and raised an additional $3,205,233 between 2007 and 2012 while paying $135,000 for Obama's inauguration in 2009. Susan Crown, Lester's daughter, there's always a Lester's daughter sat on the board of Northern Trust, which gave Obama a sweetheart loan for purchase of a $1.65 million Georgian revival mansion in Chicago's Hyde Park, complete with a 1,000-bottle wine cellar. This nigga doing wine caves. James Crown, who was the target of congressional and criminal probe as chairman of the J.P. Morgan Chase & Company's Risk Committee, was Obama's fundraising chair in his 2004 campaign for the Senate. The Crown's investments in Obama paid off. General Dynamics revenue shot up to over $30 billion in 2016, a threefold increase from 2000. The Crown's net worth doubled in the Obama years, causing the family to rise in the Forbes ranking to the 27th richest family in the United States. Now, Penny Pritzker of the Pritzker banking dynasty ranked number 9 on the Forbes list with a fortune of $32.5 billion, gave $500,000 to Obama's second inauguration, earning her appointment as Obama's Secretary of Commerce. Pritzker had helped finance Obama from the beginning of his political career, having allegedly met him early in the 1990s when her kids were playing on a basketball team coached by Michelle Obama's brother, Craig Robinson. During Obama's 2008 White House run, Pritzker served as the national chairwoman of his campaign's finance team, which shattered fundraising records, and in the 2012 re-election effort, she was top bundler. The Pritzker family, which made its fortune through ownership of Hyatt hotels and had long ties to the CIA, they were leading depositors in the Bahamas-based Castle Bank and CIA outfit funded by one of the CIA's mob liaisons, Paul Hallowell, which specialized in offshoring money. Pritzkers were also war profiteers. In 1953, patriarchs J. and Robert Pritzker founded the Marmon Group, an industrial holding company which includes the subsidiary Marmon Aerospace and Defense, which manufactures wires, cables for aerospace, military vehicles, combat systems, radar installations, and naval shipboards. Pritzkers, like the Crowns, thus personally profited from Obama's mammoth military budgets, which outstripped those of President Bush by an average of $18.7 billion per year. Obama's naval buildup in the South China Sea and has overseen more sales of military weaponry than any other president, $60 billion more than President Bush. I wonder, are these Pritzkers the same, are the ones that are related to Jaybe Pritzker, who was the governor?
The same thing. I was wondering the same thing. I was just about to ask that question.
Because Jaybe Pritzker is a billionaire.
And he was one of the people that Kamala was eyeing for a running mate.
Oh my goodness, the tea is hot.
The power elite.
I don't know. Could be the same person. Could be the same family. Could not be. I don't know. But I was wondering the same thing.
Okay, so one of the things I wanted to get to, because we don't have to read a conclusion, because we already know that.
This is the family. It's the family. He's from that family.
Ooh.
Wow.
It's a big club, and it's a club, and you ain't in it.
You ain't.
One of the things I want to talk about also is about Kamala Harris, right? When we say AOCIA, in my view, I'm thinking, does the CIA actually have a hold on the Democratic Party? What do you guys think?
I think they have a hold on both parties.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
They have a hold on whoever's in that office. I don't even think that's a question. I mean, when you think foreign policy, as it's called, does not change from administration to administration. It's a straight line. That's, maybe a president might do something different domestically, but for the most part, the things that happen overseas are going to happen regardless of who's in office. So I would say, yes, they're in power.
Yep. I can't help but to think that Kamala Harris would have not been the nominee if Obama didn't give a thumbs up.
Well, there's a little story about
what were the options though?
But there's a story about that behind the scenes. Obama did not want to readily endorse Kamala Harris. Obama wanted an open primary because Obama did not believe that Kamala Harris could win the Electoral College against Donald Trump. He actually wanted an open primary. Joe Biden was so pissed that they were telling him to drop out of the race because he didn't want to drop out. So to spite Obama and the rest of them, he said, well, screw you guys. I'm just going to go ahead and endorse Kamala and let her just take it from there. So when he endorsed Kamala, then as a couple of days went by, everybody was like, why hasn't Obama endorsed Kamala Harris? So then that forced Obama's hand to endorse her. But Obama did not want to go with Kamala Harris. He said, no, we need to have an open primary.
Okay. So this kind of goes in line with what I'm thinking. So it feels to me that even though Obama did not actually want Kamala Harris, Obama wanted a primary. It was he wanted to keep the illusion of choice more. He wanted to keep the illusion of choice more stronger by saying, "Oh, well, we're having a primary." Even though they knew who they were going to choose, they wanted to have the illusion. Oh, see, we're Democratic. We're having a primary.
Right, but he still didn't want. He still didn't want Kamala Harris because he doesn't think that she can win. Like this was revealed later on that he doesn't think that she can actually beat Donald Trump. And I think Obama doesn't want to be embarrassed again because remember, he, got behind Hillary and was like, yes, Hillary, you're next in line. And she lost. And then he went to write this memoir about how he was embarrassed and how it ruined his legacy and all this stuff because Hillary lost to Donald Trump. So I think he didn't want to go through that, have to deal with that, again. But I don't know. And there's a bunch of other stuff too, because listen, word on the street is Gavin Newsom is kind of in a little tizzy because he's not happy about being overlooked for the president nomination. He's not happy that he was overlooked for that. So now that's what word on the street is in California. So he's kind of just like, screw everything.
Oh, that's
motherfucker should have ran then. Dean Phillips was already, running. Marianne Williamson was already running. Why didn't he go ahead and do it? Why didn't he actually put pressure on the Democratic Party to run and say, look, I want to be, considered? Oh, so he wanted to do the background thing like everybody else was trying to do.
Listen, they were privately tapping him. They were privately behind the scenes. They were privately tapping him. That's why he met up with Kamala about a year or so ago at the White House, and they met with donors. Him and Kamala were meeting with donors together. So they were trying to tap him behind the scenes quietly. But the problem was Joe Biden wouldn't get out of the way. So then the next thing, then there was the other problem. The other problem that you run into is the fact that it wouldn't look right if they just overlook a woman of color and say, okay, we're going with Gavin Newsom. This is why, again, I think Obama was like, let's have the open primary. Although they still kind of had their picks in their head, they still wanted to make it kind of look like, they weren't selecting the person. But see, these people already saw internal polls. This is what I was trying to tell people. And I'm going to talk about this later tonight with the Black voter panel. These politicians saw internal polling when Joe Biden was, still hanging in there. And they went to him and said, Joe, you can't win. And they pushed him out after they saw the internal polls. Joe Biden didn't believe it. He was like, I don't believe the polls. The polls are wrong. So there was that. Now let's fast forward, or let's go back a little bit. A couple months before that, they were already testing out polls to see how Kamala Harris would do against Donald Trump. Yeah. And so they already had looked at this stuff behind the scenes. Now let's fast forward. Now they're panicking again because now new data is showing them that Kamala could still lose the swing states because the honeymoon period for Kamala Harris is. That's why AOC put out that smear against Jill Stein. She got her heads up from Democrat leadership to go ahead and let's go after Jill because that poll revealed that Muslim voters are tied between Kamala Harris and Jill Stein. So they were like, oh, we got to go after Jill, right? We got to go take her out. But that was stupid what AOC did because all she did was give Jill Stein more attention. And so now some of the people that were like, I was just going to stay at home and sit this whole thing out. But now I'm going to go vote for Jill just to piss these people off. So that's it. It's just, I'm telling you, I'm going to show you the new information tonight, the new polling tonight. She's not holding strong in the swing states anymore. It's already flipped over in Donald Trump's favor. I'm telling you guys, you wait till I show you. That's why I said, like, she got that bump when she first announced a big surge. Then she got another bump after the convention, which is expected. But even Nate Silver tried to warn people, if she doesn't get plus 14 coming out of the convention, like Obama did, she can win the popular vote and still lose the electoral college. So Nate Silver had to go back and adjust his numbers. You'll see later. Watch. I'm telling you.
Sabby, are you telling me it's going to be Hillary Clinton all over again?
The problem that you're going to run into, because we're going to play 270 to win later tonight. The problem that you're going to run into is this. Over the past two elections, whoever won Pennsylvania won Georgia, right? This is why they keep saying Pennsylvania. She's not doing well in Pennsylvania. So in 2020, Biden won Pennsylvania and Georgia. In 2016, Trump won Pennsylvania and Georgia. If that holds for this election, I would predict that she's going to lose Pennsylvania based on the numbers I see right now, which means she will most likely probably lose Georgia.
Yeah.
Well,
so sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to jump in and just say one of the things that the Democrats continue to do is to select their own candidates and not use they prefer undemocratic processes. They did it with Hillary Clinton, where Obama just cleared the way for her, told people don't run. She ran, she lost. And they're doing the same thing with Kamala Harris. And not only, they've really bumbled this so badly because if they wanted to win, you would hold a primary, you would see who people like, and you would get behind them. It's a very basic, simple process. But Democrats are so wedded to the notion of choosing the lead. It's not like you've already self-selected the people who can run. That's not enough for them. They want to choose the person. Had they had a primary, and why would you not have a primary when the president's 80 years old or 80-something years old? Like, it just would seem like the logical thing to do. But now they put Kamala in a position a few months out from an election. This is a tremendous attempt to win. It's just like they just bumbled this. I mean, listen, I'm not invested in the Democratic Party. I'm not invested in the Republican Party. I don't think either one of them is going to bring us any peace. I don't think either one of them is going to help us confront the challenges that we face. But just looking at them as a party, they are so inept that they can't even run this party properly in the way to produce the results that they want, which I would assume is winning. But I'm not even sure they want to win.
Listen, I'm trying to tell you guys, look, I saw this, I have to find it later. I saw this clip yesterday where they're saying that apparently internal information again, these internal polls that we're not seeing. Internal polls are already showing that Donald Trump is going to beat her in the swing states. And one person was commenting about this, and they said the reality is, they said somebody within like Trump's campaign said it's looking so easy we can't believe that it's true. That they're concerned because it looks that easy. Because the reality is, we can talk about all the other states if we want to, but at the end of the day, this election comes down to the swing states. That's it. Yeah. And she's now struggling in Michigan, which she wasn't before. I mean, this is all the Gaza stuff. Mm-hmm. So, you know, Muslim voters not choosing to back her, you know, in Michigan. So that's an issue. Wisconsin is kind of shaky because that tends to be the more conservative state that comes out of that region. Or when you compare it to Michigan and Minnesota, that's the more conservative state. And then there's Georgia, which, you know, they're like, well, she could win Georgia. I'm like, she could not. I would look back at the data between Pennsylvania and Georgia, because what is very clear is that Joe Biden was able to get a lot of the suburban moms to come out and vote. That's how he got Georgia. You know, he got a lot of the suburban moms and stuff. But now, based on the polls, it looks like it's going back in the other direction.
God.
And after everything that happened under Trump, like, that shouldn't even happen. So that's the question that we really need to ask. Yeah. How is it that now Donald Trump has tripled his support among Black voters? How is that possible, considering that he lost in 2020 and we already had him as president? So that says something about the current administration. This is what I'm saying. So, like, in some ways, it's going back in the other direction.
But one of my things is, I feel like, and this goes back to in the past, you know, when JFK was actually trying to take out the CIA, was that it's really, the CIA really doesn't care about whether you go Democrat or Republican as long as you stay within the duopoly, you know? And so it feels like to me that it's like, it's just managing to keep people within the realm of this capitalist system. And it's like, just maintain that. And anything outside that tries to veer outside of that, it's easy to keep people in the right than it is on the left, because once you start to go further left, that means you want to leave the system. If you stay on the right, you'll want to stay within capitalism. That's what it feels like. So it is, you know, the whole thing, you know, the link between Obama and the power that he has within the DNC. It feels like, yeah, they got both parties on lock. So,
you know, I'm curious too to think like that. The polling is so close, and Kamala just recently did an interview. She really hasn't spoken a lot about policy. There's none on her website, but she does an interview where she's giving this full-throated endorsement of Israel and arming them and funding them and defending them from some mythical enemy that they have. What voter was she trying to win with that speech? Because it's, to your earlier point, what's going on in Palestine is, if she loses, that will be what costed her the election. Who was she speaking to as she's promising to send more money and more guns and more bombs to Palestine? What base is she trying to pull from when she's losing solidly Democratic voters by making that kind of, I mean, look at what's been happening last year. Every college campus has an encampment, has ongoing protests. Columbia University over nearby me, which just had classes the first day yesterday, they're protesting. First day. Or was it Tuesday? Whatever day it was, they're back out there. Like, so I don't understand this strategy. Democrats seem to want people's votes without offering them anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to let everybody know who's new to watching this channel, look, it's not gonna, real change isn't gonna happen between, almost said Obama, but it's not gonna happen between Harris or Trump. This is why we always talk about leave the two-party duopoly, because it's not gonna happen. So, Kai, just let us know, like, what you have coming up. What are you doing so that people can follow you? Where can they follow you, and all that other good stuff?
Okay, so my name is Commandante on every platform: Instagram, Twitter, Reddit, and what do I have going on? Well, I have an announcement that I can't quite make yet, but I have something going on media-wise. But I'm a part of one of the groups I'm a part of is called Uptown for Palestine, where every Monday, 5 o'clock, we hold a vigil / protest / we sing out there, we dance out there, we doing all kind of stuff. But we're in front of Adriano Espaillat's office, which I'll say the address for folks who are local to New York. We're in front of his district office, which is on 720 West 181st Street, every single Monday. Now, I'm not out there every Monday, but I'm out there just trying to get people involved, get people to understand the issue, get people to understand how what's going on in Palestine relates to them, and most importantly, getting them to understand that this system has no solution to the problems that it's creating. Yeah. And that ultimately, if you want to win, and if you want to see your grandkids live a prosperous life, we have to fight for a communist future. So I like to end on that note.
All right. Thank you so very much for joining us, Kai. This was actually really good. I appreciate you adding all these nuggets of information that we were able to glean from. I can't wait to have you back on to talk about more subjects like this.
Thank you guys for having me. I had a great time. I'd love to do it again. And peace out to everybody out there.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, Sab. So let's get into what are you going to be talking about tonight? Because I know you're going to be talking about the road to 270. But what else you got going on your channel tonight?
We are doing the Black Voter panel again, this time with different guests. So it's going to be a whole different crew this time. Marcel Dixon will be there. Nick from RBN, of course, will be there. Afeni's going to be there. Denise, Be Easy. I think Jay Cloud is going to try to make it too, and Marcus from Political Matrix. So it should be pretty cool. Different group this time. And then I have 3 news stories after that. And then we are going to do a little call in after the show tonight. So get ready. All
right. So let's go. I got to show you this, Sabs, before we go into the super chats. You're going to get mad at me, but then you're going to laugh. Okay? Don't kill me in the text messages later. But I just got to show you this because we were talking about Kamala, and I was just like, this is who they chose? Lord and Lord.
This is how you make sure you got the good eating. Look at that. If you don't clean your greens like this or your chitlins, then don't eat them. They got to be cleaned thoroughly. All the blood, and mud, and dirt that's being in farms. Look at all that. Look at all that shit cleaning. Put in that work, child. Thanksgiving finna be off the heat.
Oh what my God.
Rubbing bubbles and Lysol hell is going on there.
My gosh.
Yeah, wait, hang on. Margot. Yes, that was soap.
Oh my God.
That's what my brain is going haywire. This is why when Kamala was talking about, oh yeah, I wash my greens in the tub, I'm like, are you crazy?
No, that is not. It's funny. My dad, I talked to him earlier and he was like, he said nobody puts greens in he said no black person puts greens in the bathtub. That's the big exposure right there. I mean, it's so. Oh my God. And it's just gross. It's gross.
I do not want my greens tasting like soft dope. I don't want it tasting like suave hair shampoo. Good Lord.
It's gross.
It's
gross. Like, why would you put food in the? Let me tell you something. Back in the day, right? We used to make this stuff called PJ. Some people call it jungle juice. Some people call it PJ, right?
Mm-hmm.
We used to make this stuff called PJ. This was I was an undergrad. And even when we made PJ, we would get like a giant Rubbermaid, like, container. We would get like a giant, like it has to be huge to put all of that liquid in, right?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't put it in no damn bathtub.
Oh, people speak on that. Lord. Two things are a red line for me. Genocide and greens in the bathtub. Those are the two things that are my genocide. I mean, that are genocide to me. Oh my goodness. Genocide of culture and genocide of people. I don't like it.
Do you understand the type of germs that can still be in a bathtub? And like, I don't even want to hear, well, we cleaned the bathtub first. Yeah, but the stuff that you clean the bathroom with, there's still a little bit of a film there sometimes. And why would you put food in? Really?
Yeah, it's not made for food.
No, that's why you have a sink.
Yes, and you do it in stages in the sink.
You rinse them, you take them and do them, and like, so like this is the way me and my mom used to do it, is like you take like a bunch of them, you put them in the sink, you rinse them in the sink, and then you put those to the side, and you take another bunch and you rinse them and you put them in the sink. Yeah, that's how you do it. So it just, I don't know, man. I don't know, but people kind of were probably like, oh, Kamala, I guess I won't be eating at your house then.
All right, let's get to these super chats because I gotta get that image out of my brain. Jay Tolbert, thank you so very much for the super chat. Says Penny and Jaybe are siblings. They look just alike. Oh, okay. So Jaybe Pritzker and Penny Pritzker. Got it. Thank you very much. Roger Meadow says, "Oh, I in Hillary is the kiss of death. 4 campaigns they endorse." Yep. Absolutely. Thank you very much. Frank Johnson, thank you very much for this. Says, who paid for Al Sharpton's perm? We all know that. Yep.
Oh, man.
Going with it. Maybe it's FBI. So I also want to go to really quick to Rockfin. Really quick because Hempcard always be giving receipts, right?
Yes.
I want to share this as well. Oh boy. All right. And Hempcard says Saddam fought Al Qaeda too. SOA Winsec mentioned here. Okay, so thank you. School of Assassins by Susan Sarandon is a must watch. Most significant. What? Yeah, it says most significant case of narco terrorism yet discovered. So this link here. Wow. Okay. Some receipts, Hempcar. You be laying on us, and then CIA admitted that it was CIA policy to keep Contra drug traffickers on the CIA payroll. And that was from Contra.gov. Oh, I'm sharing these in the chat. Thank you so much, Hempcar.
Hempcar always has receipts. He always comes ready.
I'm gonna start calling Hempcar Dr. Receipt.
There it is.
Ooh, there it is. All right, so just to let you guys know, of course, I'll be live this this Sunday. I'll be talking, I'll be doing news stories. for RBN, and then you guys can catch me on next Tuesday on my channel as well. So that being said, we're going to head on out. Sabby, I know you have a hard stop in like 3 minutes, so we're going to head on out and we're going to get ready to go. And I made sure to show the cleaning of the greens, so my job is done. All right, so look, like I always say, do all the things if you got them. And look, also, please make sure to pay attention to what's going on with the Olamide Shatella and the Uhuru 3 trial, because that is about free speech. And we got to talk about that as much as possible, because not many people talk about that. And yeah, so, and be sure to tune in to Sabby in 90 minutes from now, okay? So everybody, I will see you guys later. Any last words, Sabs?
Smoke them if you got them.
I love it. All right, everybody. Take care. Have yourself a beautiful day. And shout out to all the patrons on Patreon. We love you.